I'm back and I'm still cool. Cody, where's that beautiful, skinny, thin, almost gaunt looking face of yours? Well, today we're making some wall art for my house while I tell you a story you probably don't fucking care about. If you remember from last week, I told a story about how I got robbed at the fucking Braintree Tea Station garage, and that was with my dear friend Shannon. You see, we have this thing that happens every so often, and by every so often, I mean every goddamn motherfucking time we hang out, and it's happened for years, and we've sort of lovingly began to refer to it as, quote, the bad thing. Hey Cody, what's the bad thing? Well, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's the fucking bad thing that happens anytime we want to go do something specific, or even if we're just hanging out. Maybe it's a Saturday and we want to go to a fucking party that night. So I pick Shannon up on that Saturday night, and on our way to the party, we have to pull over because there's an obscene amount of fire trucks. There's just so many emergency vehicles. So we pull over and we say, wouldn't it be so funny if they were going to the exact same fucking house we were going to? Turns out somebody's bonfire became a house fire. Anyway, that's not what this story is about, but that is a very good, shining example of the bad thing. This bad thing takes place in Provincetown, Massachusetts. I was a mere lad. I was a freshman in high school. I was just a kid. I was a fucking kid. And you're gonna do this to me when I'm fucking 14 years old? I was a little boy, and I had just landed my leading role in a musical. I was starring as Hero in A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. The show was a huge success. Crowds from everywhere came, including Elizabeth Warren, which I didn't know like that was a big deal at the time, which to me it's not really a big fucking deal anymore. But anyway, apparently she came to the show, and then a few weeks later I saw her like at a parade. I wasn't in the parade, she was in the parade. She was marching her little fucking white ass down the street, and she saw me on the side of the road. She left the parade route, came over and shook my hand, and she said, "You have just a beautiful voice. It was just a pleasure watching you perform this weekend." And I said, "Thanks, Senator." Fuck. This has nothing to do with what I'm trying to say either, but it took place at the same theater is what I'm trying to say. I finished my incredible Tony Award winning run at that show, and then I went on to be asked if I could music direct and write some music for the upcoming straight play they were doing. This didn't have any songs written for it, but they didn't want necessarily a musical written. They just wanted some underscoring and maybe a few little things here and there to throw in to break up the monotony of the story, because it was a very famous play. Now, from my perspective, you're asking a 14, soon to be 15-year-old boy if he wants to be not at home on a Friday night, make $50 and be fed fucking sandwiches every weekend? Yeah, I'll do that, and I'll do it for free if you fucking want me to. So I absolutely signed that goddamn contract. So for like 6 weeks, I managed to bring my ass to and fro to Provincetown and write these little songs and play these little numbers for these actors while they were going on stage, off stage, you know, underscoring the entire play in a new way that I had never seen the play done before, so I felt really excited about it. We're inching closer and closer to opening night, and suddenly one day I go to the theater after school, after driving 45 minutes after being at fucking school all day, so I was exhausted. And not only do I find that our entire set has been disassembled, it's missing. The theater is empty. So I go to the box office and I tell the lady, "Hey, I'm here for rehearsal, but it looks like this place has been evicted. Like, what's going on, please?" And she got very, very serious. And she said, "Oh, honey, there's a meeting happening today. Stick around." Okay, got it. Slowly but surely, the rest of the cast walks in, and they are met with the same fucking confusing image. Can you imagine going to work one day after working at this job for like 2 months, and you walk through the front doors of your fucking bakery and there's no more fucking bakery? You're just in an empty room and you're looking around and no one is saying anything. So that's what all these people walk into one by one. And I was like looking around like, ooh, this is gonna be good, whatever it is, because you know who is missing? The director, the one man in charge. So finally, this man strolls up, and I will never forget this. I will never forget this man. He was probably 9'2". He wore a beret, and he always wore dark brown. If you said, "I like the color black you wear," he would correct you and say, "It's not black. I never wear black. You should never wear black. It's dark brown." So Slender Man slinks in with his beret and his dark brown turtleneck, and he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I have terrible news." Silence falls over all of us, and we're all looking around, and we're all very sheepishly trying to make eye contact with one another and not trying to look at the director, because you can tell that he's really going through it. And that was the moment that I realized somebody else was missing. Not only was our director up until 2 seconds ago MIA, but the man who's the star of the show is gone, missing, not in the room. So we're all looking around, and I can see other people are starting to notice it. So I text my friend who's in the play, and I said, "Where's so-and-so?" They respond, "I don't know, I was just gonna ask you that." And then the director says, "You might have noticed that so-and-so is not here. And I want you to know." And then his voice began to shake, and he turned himself around and faced the back wall so we can't see him. We can only see his dark brown turtleneck and his beret. And then he burst into this hysterical, extremely loud, emotional scream, threw himself to the floor on his knees with 2 fists banged on the ground like a small child who didn't get the fucking Halloween candy they wanted, and ran out of the front door of the theater. Yeah, and you may notice there's 5 minutes left in this video. We are halfway through. We have just begun to open this can of worms, this can of dark brown beret wearing, turtleneck wearing worms, okay? So he runs out of the front of the theater screaming down the street. The man had a mental breakdown and ran out the door, Mary. Gone with the wind, okay? And so we're all sitting there looking at each other, silent. It's silent. No one's saying anything. We're barely looking at each other because, again, our boss, this man was our boss. This man signed our paychecks. He just ran away. He just threw a temper tantrum like a toddler and ran away. Thankfully, one of the board members of the theater was also there because they were supervising this meeting, because we were about to find out it was actually much bigger than what we were just anticipating was, oh, we're getting a new director. No, this man comes up in front of us and says, yes, this play opens next week. No, this play will not continue to go on stage. I'm really sorry just for that, first of all. You'll notice the set is gone. You'll notice you'll have final paychecks waiting for you in the box office. The show's canceled. We're not going through with this. We've canceled everyone's contracts and paid you out in full. What? This was supposed to be our job from March until the very beginning of May. So all of us were very confused because suddenly we're out of a job, we're out of a routine, our entire schedules have been just completely fucked, and we're like, what the fuck? So someone had the guts to be like, yeah, what's going on? Why? Because again, the lead to the show is also not here. You'd think he'd want to know what's going on. And the fucking board member goes, all right, so something occurred between the director of this show and the lead of this show, and we as a board decided that it was not appropriate and it was not permissible. And because of that, we needed to either part ways with this production or part ways with the director. Obviously, we decided to part ways with the director. Okay, what happened? Apparently, this director had the hots for the man that he casted as the lead in this show. And through town gossip, I learned that this has been going on for years. This man has been in love with this man for years. And every time he was in a position to cast plays or influence plays in the sense of who was involved in the show, you bet your ass this man got cast every single time. However, this man was also very well known in town. So was his husband of 2 decades. It was a closed relationship. It was very obvious by the fucking platinum rings on their fingers, and everyone knew that. Yet still, this man was insufferably in love. So he decided that this would be his final chance to see if he could maybe do the thing where you cast a leading man in a play and he falls in love with the director and they elope into the sunset and live happily ever after. Turns out the man starring in the show was like, dude, I don't know what to tell you, but it's not gonna happen. And our director had a fucking mental breakdown, And as he was trying to tell us, I have to leave this show because I'm in love with so-and-so, he couldn't handle it and split his head in 2 and ran out the front door. Albeit crazy, that is not where this story ends. So the meeting concludes and we're all sort of just shaken, but whatever, we just got a bunch of time off. We're all getting paid in full. It's not the worst situation. It just kind of feels like we wasted a bunch of our own personal fucking time. And again, we opened that play in a week, so we had all pretty much moved into that theater. We had all of our shit in the dressing rooms, in the lobby of the theater. There was so much of our stuff occupying that space that it was really burdensome to just suddenly be told, you gotta hit the road. But again, we've been paid in full, our contracts were closed. If this was the way it had to end, this was the best way it could have possibly ended. So as I'm going to the box office to say goodbye, I asked the lady, hey, when should I pick up my final check? She looked at me very seriously and she said, come in person next Friday after school. Whoa. Very specific directions I had never gotten from this woman before. So I was like, I will heed your warning and I will be here in person next Friday after school for my check. And probably a little bit of chismosa, but that was besides the point, even though it was an unspoken truth. Ooh, I'm fucking jumping for joy that entire week, waiting for my check. The theater calls me, hey, your check's in the mail. Don't come to the theater. What? Why? I'm supposed to go get my fucking check and I'm supposed to learn a little bit of gossip. Turns out that theater had become an active crime scene. Our director had become so distraught, and so forlorn about this love that was never to be that he ran away screaming and crying, ran all the way home screaming and crying. And what did he do? Broke into his mother's apartment, went upstairs and strangled her and tried to kill her. The man went from fucking directing a community theater production of The Importance of Being Earnest to being arrested and charged with attempted homicide of his elderly mother. Which is why I was not allowed to return to the theater, because they were looking for evidence of a premeditation. She did survive. Hooray. This is the wall art I came up with. I hope you like it. I just wanted to make something simple, a little bit understated. Let me know, have you ever met a murderer? If you would like to follow me anywhere else, everywhere else, I am Cody Jacob.